Manly Hall official, is glad to produce, publish and offer. The magical mountain of the moon. This is the emblematical, magical type which Talia delivered to me in the invisible guina. The first and superior part of it represents the mountains of the moon. The philosophers commonly call them the mountains of India, on whose tops grow their secret and famous lunaria. It is an herb easy to find, but that men are blind for it discovers itself and shines after night like pearls. The earth of these mountains is very red beyond all expression. It is full of crystalline rocks which the philosophers call their glass and their stone. Birds and fish say they bring it to them. Of these mountains speaks Halley the Arabian, a most excellent, judicious author. Vade fili ad montes India ad cavernas suas, accipi ex eis lapides honorados colloquifiant in a cut, quando comis center eis. Go, my son, to the mountains of India and to their quarries or caverns, and take thence our precious stones which dissolve or melt in water when they are mingled therewith. Much indeed might be spoken concerning these mountains if it were lawful to publish their mysteries, but one thing I shall not forbear to tell you. They are very dangerous places after night, for they are haunted with fires and other strange apparitions, occasioned, as I am told by the Magi, by certain spirits which dabble lasciviously with the sperm of the world and imprint their imagination in it, producing many times fantastic and monstrous generations. The access and pilgrimage to this place with the difficulties which attend them are faithfully and majestically described by the brothers of R.C. Their language indeed is very simple and with most men perhaps contemptible, but to speak finely was no part of their design. Their learning lies not in phrase but in the sense, and that is it which I have proposed to the consideration of the reader. After having read this slight introduction by the renowned alchemist and mystic, it would be well for the reader to consider again the letter which was published in last month's edition, and then let us study the general symbolism of the entire work. If you're enjoying this video and finding value in the content, we kindly ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the channel. A large portion of our listeners and viewers haven't subscribed yet, and by doing so, you'll help us grow and continue bringing you more high-quality audiobooks. Your support means a lot to us, and it's just one click away. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to stay connected and never miss out on our latest releases. Among all the ancient peoples, mountains were held sacred, and the points most sacred to every land were its lofty hills. Among the ancient Greeks, the temple of their gods was upon the top of Mount Olympus, where far above the clouds the gods dwelt and labored with man, coming down occasionally into the valley to sojourn with and direct the energies of their children. Among the Scandinavians we find Asgard, the home of the 12 gods, far upon the top of a magical mountain which was symbolized as the highest point of the world. We are all acquainted with the sacred mountain of the Jewish people, Mount Sinai, where the Lord spoke to Moses, and Mount Moriah, over the brow of which Hiram Abiff, the Masonic hero, was buried. Among the Orientals we have Mount Meru, and the world still turns in awe to the shadowy heights of the Himalayas, where many people yet believe the gods to dwell. The Knights of the Holy Grail had their castle far up among the crags of Mount Salvert in ancient Spain, and among the Andes of the Western world we still find the ruins of massive altars at the very top of pyramids and mountains. The entire story of the magical mountains is based upon the analogy between the world and man. Each individual is a universe, a god, a planet, an infinitesimal bit of something all in one. We find the human body to be the plan of the temple. It is undoubtedly the symbol of Calvary, and where the head of man is in the ancient churches there were steps leading up to an altar. There are three worlds of human consciousness in which man is particularly interested. There is hell, the land of darkness and dissolution, the land of dead things, lighted only by the fires of perversion. Then there is the middle garden of the earth world which man knows, the world of purely human affairs. Then far up on the heights of a lofty mountain is the heaven world of man with the skull as its dome. Now, all the powers which man really uses are centered upon the top of the mountain of his body in the domed temple of his own head. It is within this superior world of which the lower is a counterpart, for all the functions of the human body and its organs are duplicated in the brain, that the treasure of great price is concealed. The path that leads to light is the path taken by the consciousness of man up through the red mountain of his own body into the superior, mystical world concealed upon its top. The 12 convolutions of the brain are the 12 disciples or gods who govern and regulate the destiny of human affairs, and it is the passing of the spiritual consciousness upward through the 33 segments of the spinal column that constitutes the path of initiation up through the magical mountain of the moon. It is known to alchemists and all students that the world is divided into two general divisions, the sun and the moon. The sun has to do with spiritual things while the moon affects material things, and here it is important to note that the magical mountain of the bodies forms the living throne upon the very crest and in the very heart of which is concealed the quintessia vitra, the philosopher's elixir. The passing upward of the consciousness of the individual through regenerated thought and action is by means of the mastery of things. He grows through mastery, and initiation is the mastery of certain elements by the consciousness or spiritual power within. It is stated above in the letter that the path which leads to this mountain is beset with many dangers, and any student who has attempted to walk the spiritual path realizes that this is true. The terrible beasts, dragons, and reptiles represent our own lower natures which are ever between us and the path that leads to higher things. There is, as it is said, but one weapon with which we can fight them, and this is the weapon of truth, light, and non-resistance. The only way of overcoming evil is through the boycott system, as the student will discover before he reaches the goal he seeks. 3 tests confronted the candidate according to this allegory. 3 great natural elements were called into play: a very mighty wind, a terrific earthquake, and a consuming fire. These may very briefly be explained as thought which along spiritual lines breaks up the rocks of crystallization, this thought being symbolized by air which blowing the clouds across the sky was symbolized by the ancients as the ideas of man in the blue dome of the skull. As the result of this thought there is the expression of physical action and the action of physical bodies, which are commonly listed under the heading of earth conditions and are symbolized as the earthquake, which, more spiritually interpreted, represents the changes which take place in the physical organism when the candidate begins his active, spiritual work. The fire is the spiritual power generated by the previous processes which loosened upon the individual by his thoughts and actions immediately burns away whatever is not fit for its own works, the alchemy of transmutation within its own soul. The rising of the day star symbolizes the extension of the soul which has been referred to as the star body by the ancients. Through the rising of the light, the spiritual center of consciousness within him, after having passed through the three grand initiations of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, air, fire, and earth, man is then enabled to see within himself the magical mountain of the moon and the wondrous treasure that is contained upon its top. These treasures are entirely of a spiritual nature and have nothing to do with material things, the gold and precious stones referred to symbolizing the awakened centers which are jewel-like, and the streams of transmuted vital energies which the ancients called gold. And it is this gold which is said to pave the streets of the New Jerusalem. In next month's magazine we shall continue the consideration of this mystic message of the magical mountain of the moon and the mystery of the Magi referred to by Philolethes in his wonderful book. A little episode from my life. In every large city of the world, we see those solitary figures which whisper of life's tragedy. On almost every street corner we find someone sick, blind, or poor, asking for the consideration and kindness of others. Among the Eastern peoples we hear the eternal cry, alms, in the name of Allah, and in our Western world there are many who hold out their hands asking those who have to aid those who have not. In every land there are those for whom the battle of life has been too severe, and one after another they sink down beside the way and ask our aid that they may live. The Master expressed a great truth when he said to his disciples, "The poor ye shall have with you always." Huddled on the street corners we find them, and while some no doubt use these methods to evade honest labor, still there are many broken souls who, if it were not for the coins of the passers-by, would find life cold, indeed, and we should remember the bond of brotherhood that ties all living beings together, for it is better by far to give to a dozen who do not need than to miss the truly worthy one. There's a little drama played out here as in all things of life, a little story that should etch itself into the soul, and I want to tell you of one little drama witnessed on a street corner just a few days ago. In a darkened doorway away from the passing throng, a little old lady sat on a broken stool. Her face was tired and worn, pinched with suffering and poverty. And while many may seek in the road of begging sympathy and easy money, this little soul bore the stamp of sincerity. She had an accordion on which she was playing, and a little tin cup for the coins of thoughtful persons. She was playing old-fashioned tunes, and it is to be admitted that she did not play them well, nor was the little broken voice in tune with the squeaky notes of the cheap accordion. Still there was a certain pathos, a certain sweetness and softness which spoke of sorrow and suffering and disappointment. Who can say what stretched behind in the years that had passed? Who can tell of children now in other parts of the world, maybe dead, possibly only thoughtless? Who can know the shattered hopes, the broken idols, the crushed ideals, hidden away beneath that tattered shawl of camel's hair? And still there must have been hidden beneath that broken body the star of hope, which even in the cold desolation of life still shines eternal in the human heart. This little figure whispered of better days, of years more filled with joy than those which stretch before her. It may be in truth that she should be in the home for the old. Very possibly her present position was the result of her own mistake. In some way it must have been, but that is not the drama with which we are interested. Brothers of the Shining Robe. The Temple of Caves. I credit myself with being in a position to know, for I have been in the catacombs of Rome, through the dungeons of the Colosseum, in the palace of the Doges, and through the vaulted chambers of the pyramids. So far as the eyes could see, The room stretched on in avenues and rows of natural pillars carved into gigantic elephants holding up with raised tusks and trunks the ceiling above. On one side of me was a great god with hundreds of arms and whose hundreds of heads gazed down from the vaulted archway. On the other side sat the elephant god upon a couch of lions. In the center of this great room stood a massive stone bowl, the pedestal of which was a great green cobra carved from marble. In the bowl blazed a fire of many colors, the light of which I had seen reflected on the wall without. Around the edge of this great room, which grew dimly visible as my eyes became accustomed to the darkness, I saw 12 great doorways leading into recesses which I could not fathom, and at once the thought came into my mind, one which I hardly dared to believe myself, that I was in the temple of the caves cut from the heart of a living mountain. There was no one in sight save my lonely guide, and he led me silently across the great room and along the temple pillars to where a great shrine opened in the wall, and here 3 great mysterious beings looked down from recesses which had no end. You might call them gods or idols in the outer world, but they did not seem such here, and to this day I do not know whether they were made of stone or of strange living substances. If they were stone, they were of some other kind than that which is known in the world, for they glowed and gleamed and seemed never still, not with the reflected light of the fire, but with a glow and blaze from within themselves. The 3 together supported a great frame which seemed of solid gold, and around the frame great serpents twined, and within was a strange, bluish, transparent haze of unknown depth. My curiosity, which was of true European type and incapable of the stoic attitude of the East, overcame me, and in spite of what might be the result of my actions, I stepped forward to examine the relics, and reaching out my hand sought to touch the mirror, for that was the only thing which it seemed to resemble in my mind. Then a smile came over me, a smile, however, filled with terror and awe. I had sought to step forward, but I had not moved. I had tried to raise my hand, but it did not lift, and I realized that I was in a place unknown to the outer world, and that the laws which govern ordinary man were not effective here. My companion now broke the silence for the first time, and although I spoke both Hindustani and Sanskrit, he addressed me in flawless English. "Well, my friend, this is the first time that you have seen me, but it is not the first time I have known you. A strange series of apparent coincidences have occurred, not only within the last short span of years, but in the ages that are past. All things work as the gods decree, and before the coming of the compassionate ones, when these great stone walls had not yet had the builder's hand upon them, the work which we do today was ordained. Look back over your life and its restless wandering, and can you not see the hand of destiny which is molding you, has molded you, until today you stand within the shrine of the living God in the temple of the caves? Forever, there has been between you and man the blue veil of the gods, and the restless wandering of your own soul must have whispered that you were not as other men. Some great reason yet unknown, you must realize, has been the potent factor of your being. I have been watching you, and in this silent room have guided you in the ways of light. I have been near you in loves and fears, preparing a great way that later you shall walk. In this strange mirror, not of glass but of living ethers, I will show you the reason for all things, the labors that have stretched behind, the works to come, how you are fulfilling vows you made when worlds were in the forming, and why now you have been called out of the multitudes of men, for I put the words in the mendicant's heart that led you here. You do not know us or believe in the sacred ways, and yet before this body returns to the earth from which it came you shall be listed with the compassionate ones. The mirror of eternity. I listened with close attention while my strange companion made the remarks which concluded the preceding chapter. I was not a religious man. I did not understand nor particularly care about the spiritual things of life. From the time when I first entered the world, I had been told that I was supremely selfish, and all the conditions of my childhood tended to bring out my egotism, self-aggrandizement, and laziness, and I felt that I had been pretty true to my early teachings. Still at his words I felt a tugging at some invisible cord within my own being, and in spite of myself my eyes turned to the strange, blue haze which filled the frame supported by the three gods. In the old guide I recognized the great saint referred to by holy men, and I remained silent as he continued his discourse. I know, my son, that you do not understand, or rather that you fail to remember the things which I am telling you, therefore be very attentive to my words. The fact that you alone out of all the holy men of India are the first in nearly 40 years to find this sacred place proves beyond all words that a great reason lies behind your coming, and in order that you too may understand all that lies around you I shall tell you of this sacred mirror. In the days now gone by when the gods lived with men, when the great Devas from the higher plane and the Manu himself walked the earth in flesh, he built himself in a single night this wondrous temple and left in it his most precious gifts, of which this wondrous glass which reflects the worlds invisible to the eyes of men is not the least. From the ever-changing substances of nature this glass draws forth each hidden secret and is indeed the mirror of eternity. For, know you, that there surrounds and interpenetrates the world which we know other worlds that we do not see, and this mirror while of this world is sanctified in other worlds and shows to those who look the records of Brahma's day preserved within the living beings of earth. Look! And he pointed at the fathomless depths. As he spoke, great swirling, twisting clouds appeared in the bottomless abyss of the sacred mirror. I looked, and before my eyes there slowly formed out of the whirling clouds a strange world that stretched into the infinity of darkness. It was a world of broken things, great, twisted, gnawed trees of types unknown, their trunks blackened as though by fire, raised their branches like supplicating arms. Great cloudy, smoldering flames burst forth from cracks and crevices in the rocks, and in the air great banks of sulphurous smoke, tinted by the flames, formed into twisting clouds of oily red. In my ears was the moaning and sighing of the winds and the dashing of the waves upon a broken shore. I tried to recall from somewhere out of the past this strange scene, but nowhere, even among the volcano and lava beds of Vesuvius and Etna, had such clouds of smoke ever gathered. What is this strange scene? I asked my guide. That, my son, is called the land of the lonely ones, answered the Oriental, although the eyes of mortal cannot see it. What you now behold is built of the thoughts and desires of the people of earth. You are now gazing on the home of men as it has been seen by the compassionate ones. From this strange land of death and dissolution there pour forth the spirits of the flame, the demons of war, the miseries, strife, and contention which fill the world. It is here that the work you are to do begins. It is here in the world of causes that the compassionate ones labor for their brothers. I gazed at the picture again, and a strange chill came over my being. It was so cold, so cheerless, so dead, and yet from within came the echo of an accusing voice, and although I was loath to admit it, I realized that beneath the life I lived my own being wandered in a wilderness as gloomy and desolate as the scene I beheld. As I watched, I saw a tiny, golden star shine out through the darkness. Wherever its beams fell, the broken, confused mass of ragged rocks melted away with its glow, and the deep, angry red of the smoldering fires turned golden with its warmth. As I looked more closely, I saw that this little star was carried in the form of a lantern by a strange, mystic figure which walked, or rather floated, over the scene of desolation. "Who is that?" I muttered under my breath. "Watch," answered my strange companion. "Among the Masonic crafts there are many wonderful degrees, but none has a deeper or more beautiful sentiment than the Mohammedan shrine. Let us drop for the present the social side of Masonry, for it is only an accessory which means nothing to the true art and science of the active craft. The Mason is a builder throughout eternity, and in the beautiful degree of the shrine a wonderful thought is given to him which should assist him to better thinking and better living, otherwise its profound significance in Masonry is lost to the craft. Let us go back to the ancient peoples where practically all of the modern symbolism had its origin, and here we find many wonderful facts concerning the mystery of the shrine. Man is eternally a worker, but to what end? That is a question which only mystics and philosophers can answer. What is the great reward for years of sorrow and labor? What is man's recompense for his works in his life? The answer is that man is a builder of shrines. From the beginning of time to the end of eternity, man is building a wondrous altar piece for his living temple. He is fashioning a wonderful and glorious decoration to adorn an empty niche. In other words, with thought, action, and desire, through his thousands and millions of years of growth, he is laboring consciously or unconsciously to a single end. This end is the preparing of a holy place to be the dwelling of the highest. Therefore, in spirit and in truth, man is a shriner, a builder of shrines. Now, in many ways man carries on his appointed destiny, and all through the ages he is building eternally many things, and on all planes of nature he is laying up treasures with which to adorn this wondrous altar piece, the living of his own soul. Shrine. In India there are many wonderful shrines of gold and jewels, brass and glorious lacquers, stone and wood, carved by the hands of the faithful into ornaments and decorations to embellish and make grander the altars of the gods they worship. It is said that only the heathen build shrines, but we know that this is not true, for only the finest, the purest, the most noble of human beings can build a shrine, and not even the end of time as we know it shall bring to completion the shrine building of the soul. Now, the world as we know it at the present time is the great rough block from which man must cut this beautiful shrine. With love, compassion, joy, and a deeper understanding of the mysteries of life, he must take the brutal, the cruel, the rough, and the unfinished, and with the vision of the true seer carve with loving thoughts, joyful hands, and a contrite spirit, this rough and broken mass into the glorious shrine of spirit. Let man realize that he is building a strange and subtle thing, and a new power and zeal inspires his efforts. Its wonderful pillars he carves from the granite blocks of matter. With thought, word, and actions he decorates it and glorifies it until it becomes a thing of beauty and grandeur. Into the settings he has fashioned, he places the stones of knowledge and love, each flower, each little figure, carved by loving hands for the glory of his God. As he works through the ages, he realizes that his own body, the world in which he lives, and the world of his friends and those around him are the materials from which this shrine must be built. It is from the dross of his own soul that he must cut the golden key, and his own being must become the glorious setting to contain the most precious of all jewels, the pearl of great price and the philosopher's stone. Man is ever human, and being human he is impatient, thoughtless, and unsettled as to the reason for his own being. Therefore, he makes a great mistake, a sad and terrible mistake, yet who shall blame him for it? It is a mistake which seems almost godlike and which sometimes even the masters make, and yet how can we judge them? When man builds this sacred shrine, he fails to realize there is but one thing worthy to fill that hallowed spot. Some god of earth he seeks to raise to heaven's height, enshrined beside the infinite, a cherished thought, a loved one of this world, who has called to him or who has heard the whisper of his soul. But how can a god of clay fill a shrine of gold? The answer lies in the broken heart at the foot of the shrine, when the one we sought to raise to the height of a god proves to be only a creature of earth. How many hours and years of sorrow man must experience when he allows the human to fill the shrine of the divine? None can answer that problem save those who have seen the shrine shattered and the figure crumble which they worshipped as a god. Therefore, the shriner learns that that sacred place is the dwelling of the highest and that there can be no other gods before him. As man labors through the ages to build the shrine, he must never seek to fill it with an idol of wood or stone which he glorifies as the divine, for soon the beloved lies at his feet a broken ruin, only less broken than the heart of the worshipper. Close to his heart man must keep the ones he adores, deep in his soul should he etch the picture of those who are dear, but never let him place within this hallowed shrine any save the living God. Our world is filled with those who have known the pain of a broken heart because something of earth came too close to the things of God. Broken we lie at the feet of our idols, crushed and disconsolate, and for years we do not labor with the shrine because it seems that whatever we build into it, a glorious love or life, is shattered into 1,000 places, and not have we in our hands but broken clay. The soul of the dreamer is broken with the idol at his feet. The heart of love is cold as it sees the creature of its adoration fall a heap of broken dust before it. But there is the mystery of the shrine. Through the ages man is to build this glorious altar but not to fill it. Man will never know, it seems, the glory of being able to fill that shrine with those adored. His is the work to build it, to finish it with all the beauty and grandeur that his soul may know, but forever the empty niche must face him, never to be filled. Forever he seems to be building a golden ring around an empty void, but from his hands there shall come a strange craftsmanship. The mercy seat shall be built into the shrine, and as the last touch is completed and the architect lays aside his plans, the shrine builder shall kneel in adoration before his works and know at last the mystery of the shrine. In the heart of the altar he has finished, in the niche of that sacred shrine, a great light shall come and descend upon him. It is the light he cannot build, it is the presence of the Lord, which nothing of earth can give him. Whatever else he may worship becomes as nothing before that mystic thing, and whoever in this world he cherished no longer fills the shrine, for each loved thing has an altar, everything we cherish has its own little worshipping place in the heart. The shrine of the soul is for the spirit alone, And when man has finished his work and built his temple after the order of the highest, then shall the Spirit of the Lord inhabit it, and the shrine shall be filled forever. No longer will the idol crumble, for now the ideal fills the shrine. No longer will man's heart be broken as those he trusts fail him in the moment of his extremity, for the presence in the shrine will never leave it, but as a pillar of flame by night and a column of smoke by day the shriner is ever protected by the light of God. So, in Masonry we have the privilege and duty of building this mystic shrine, the living temple of the living God, and the beauty of this wonderful Mohammedan degree is as sweet and as divine as any Christian concept. So, seekers of the great light, let us make our pilgrimage to Mecca and there pay our homage to the green banner of the Prophet, and then wrapping the veil around our turbans or fez let us return to build more wonderful and more mystic shrines as we labor in the completion of the Great One which is to be within us, the dwelling place of the living God, for there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. 5 times a day the Muslim calls to prayer. 5 times the Son of Islam faces the Kaaba and there offers up his prayer to the living God. Let us pray to the same God that the time may not be far off when we shall more truly build a shrine that he may dwell within it. Copyright 2025 by Manly Hall Official. Thank you for listening. Please consider to subscribe, like, and share to help the channel growth. New videos on a daily basis.